Forget another royal headline because this disaster is unraveling painfully in public, with everyone watching every second. The wildest twist is the very people trapped inside this chaos probably already realize there's absolutely no turning back anymore, and everyone can see it happening now.
And to the UK for the first time in almost 4 years.
If you're the royal family, and I know this for a fact from talking to people close to them, right, there's a lot of wariness about this. Right? They don't trust them. Period. They just don't trust them. I mean, Harry to them is like Brooklyn Beckham is to the Beckhams.
Yikes! This is not a drill. It is official. Be afraid. Be very afraid. Harry and Meghan are coming to the United Kingdom in July, and they're bringing the kids.
Know from speaking to people around the royals, they're very concerned about this. Right? They just think she will come in, and she is getting desperate with her failure of her business stuff. And so she knows she needs to be seen.
Why do you think they want to come back to this awful, racist, snobbish, cruel society and institution?
Well, I think you can summarize it in 2 words. Desperation.
Something has definitely changed. Not quietly, not subtly, but in that chilling, awkward way where everyone acts like nothing is wrong while everything is obviously collapsing behind palace doors. The conversation around Prince Harry and Meghan Markle is not about reconciliation anymore. It's about whether that door has already been locked from the inside. Then Piers Morgan storms into the chaos with a claim that doesn't just raise eyebrows, it completely blows apart the entire narrative. Because when someone with long-standing connections speaks this boldly, you have to wonder, what exactly is he hearing that the public still isn't?
Direct sources from within the royal family who are telling him, no, we don't trust Meghan. No, we don't want her back. And are even comparing Prince Harry to Brooke.
That's exactly where this stops feeling like ordinary gossip and starts sounding like a carefully disguised leak. Because if those connections are even partly genuine, then what he's suggesting isn't random speculation. It's a glimpse into the mood growing behind palace walls. A mood that refuses forgiveness. A mood that refuses to completely forget.
Because they left. We had a deal. And they are tearing up that deal. And I'll tell you what really upsets me is that deal was brokered by one of the greatest Britons in our history, icon. And those grifters, Harry and Meghan, have torn up this agreement with the Queen. And the poor woman, may God rest her soul, is not here to enforce it. And Charles ain't going to enforce it. Why? Because he is irredeemably weak. Harry is so, Charles is so spineless. He's so weak. He's a kindly man. He's actually too nice for his own good. He's too good for this world. And what you need is somebody like William in charge, who has a ring of steel. He has ballast. William is a tough guy. He's a good-looking guy.
Because suddenly this isn't simply about distance. It's about perception. About how Prince Harry gets discussed inside rooms the public will never enter. Judged, measured, reduced into someone far less royal than before. And that comparison didn't just trend, it lingered. It planted a question nobody can ignore. Has his status quietly shifted from insider to outsider in the eyes that matter most? If that's true, then every move, every statement, every attempt at reconnecting starts looking less like progress and more like a desperate fight against a story already written.
Like confrontation.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't like everything to be chaotic and traumatic and combative. He would just like it to be calm so he can get on with doing a very good job, by the way, as our monarch, I think. And I think the trip to America was astonishingly successful and his greatest moment actually as a royal. So he's doing his stuff. He just wants the rest to just be calm. So I don't think it really, for him, he's like, well, obviously I'd like to see my son. But the problem is everyone around him is like, well, how do you trust him, sir? How do you trust this son of yours who every single time you see him in the last few years, everything gets leaked?
Well,
right? And then you add Meghan to the mix, who said she'd never come back to the country, who has spent years trashing our country, who's branded the royals a bunch of...
And this is where everything becomes seriously uncomfortable. Beneath all that polished silence hides something far colder, fear. Not fear of confrontation, but fear of exposure. Every conversation, every meeting, every private moment carries the same dangerous gamble. The gamble that it won't stay private, that it becomes tomorrow's headline, the next bombshell, another chapter in a drama refusing to disappear. So the real question isn't whether they'll reconcile, it's who would willingly take that risk again. When that question echoes through royal corridors, the silence afterward screams louder than any argument. Then the money angle enters, quietly whispered, endlessly debated, and carefully examined like a ticking clock nobody wants to face. Because public image isn't only about reputation, it's about value, and once that value gets questioned, it begins slipping in ways invisible at first but impossible to ignore.
Speaking to people around the royals, they're very concerned about this, right? They just think she will come in and she is getting desperate with her failure of her business stuff. And so she knows she needs to be seen. I mean, when was the last time you saw them with any A-listers? They're not. Like, the A-list world's made a calculation. If you go with those two, you're never going to be invited to the real stuff.
Well, I think the last one
So-
was that Netflix party, wasn't it?
And desperate, to your point,
Yeah.
Piers, desperate equals dangerous.
Correct.
But I do think that when you're mocked so publicly as they've been, their value begins to nosedive pretty quickly. And I don't think they're finding any more sources of income. And with the stream of money they're spending on security, on mortgages, on just plain living, I think they can see the end of the road within 5 years at best. And they've got a real financial.
Now the narrative suddenly shifts again from emotional fallout to pure survival. From family drama to something that feels far more calculated, because when relevance starts fading, closeness becomes power, and staying close to the royal family becomes the most valuable currency of all. But here's the contradiction, making this entire situation feel unbelievably real. How do you rebuild trust with the very institution you publicly tore apart? How do you walk back into a system that has already learned to function perfectly without you? That's where another layer of this story quietly unfolds, sounding less dramatic, but feeling far more permanent.
To the UK for a week as an ongoing part of their world publicity tour. Be clear, by the way, that their return to the UK is an act of total desperation. Be clear, it means that the Sussex brand is dead. Because for Meghan to come back is the greatest mea culpa. It's the greatest admission of failure. Because you see, Meghan would love never to come back because she's going to.
Because behind all the emotional speculation, another reality is quietly taking shape. The monarchy is changing, shrinking, tightening, becoming smaller, more controlled, and far more calculated. In that future, where exactly do Prince Harry and Meghan Markle fit? Not emotionally, not symbolically, but practically. Strangely, no clear answer ever arrives, which may actually be the answer itself. Just when it seems this saga is finally reaching its ending, everything flips again. A shocking twist reopens the entire story. A possibility refuses to disappear. While the institution keeps moving forward, there's still a father, a grandfather, a man who may view this as something deeply personal instead of purely strategic. That's where emotion crashes into logic in the most unpredictable way. And just when this drama seems ready to explode, another twist appears. Now the whispers aren't only about distance or distrust anymore. They're about something far more explosive. A return, not a quiet visit or low-profile reunion, but a massive moment capable of shaking the entire royal institution simply by happening.
Stripping them of their titles. Why should they be allowed to march around the world with unofficial royal visits, making tons of money for themselves in the process without doing any royal duty whatsoever? Why should they?
Totally right.
It's absolutely outrageous.
And also, why should they have the titles, the children as well, Prince and Princess? It's a load of old nonsense. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex.
I thought they weren't going to use their titles,
They're
the
not
children.
supposed to use the titles. That's what they agree.
Oh, she'll be using all the titles.
That's what they agree.
Yeah.
But the fact is that they're going to come here. It's going to turn into a circus. No matter what anybody says, it will be the big moment. The king has had a gun held to his head. Effectively, they've said, we're coming over. All the leaks have come out to say they're coming over with the kids. Therefore, what does he do? He says, okay, you can use the palace if you give enough notice. But ultimately, how long will he spend with them? No more than half an hour if it happens. Will Camilla be there? Absolutely not. Will William be there? Absolutely not. Will they meet their cousins? No, they won't. So how much has been repaired here? Nothing.
Well, clearly there's an ulterior motive there. And in my opinion, it's Harry's and Meghan's decline. Their Q score is what we call it in Hollywood. Their popularity score has taken such a nosedive in the last 6 years. Commercially, reputationally, Harry and Meghan need a little royal magic for them to continue to try to commercialize that proximity.
Because stop and think about what's actually being suggested here. Not reconciliation for closure, but reconciliation as pure strategy. Suddenly, every decision starts looking completely different. The timing, the public appearances, the projects, the interviews, were they real signs of independence or carefully planned steps leading back toward the very system they abandoned? And if even part of that is true, then the real question isn't whether the royal family will welcome them back. It's whether they believe this return is truly genuine or simply necessary. Then comes the moment that makes everything feel almost scripted. They're returning with the children. Not quietly, not privately, but in a way guaranteed to spark attention, endless speculation, and enormous pressure. Once children enter the picture, the entire story instantly changes. It appears softer on the surface, but far sharper underneath. Now, this isn't only about two people anymore. It's about legacy, bloodlines, the next generation stepping into a family surrounded by unresolved tension. And what exactly is the palace supposed to do with that? Because every single option comes with a price. Reject them, and it looks heartless. Welcome them, and it looks weak. Keep the meeting limited, and it feels calculated. Open the doors wider, and they may never close again. Suddenly, the response itself becomes the biggest clue about where the real power truly lies. Then the conversation takes an even darker twist. Titles aren't just symbols anymore, they're leverage, identity, and status. Now more voices are asking the once unthinkable question. Should those titles even survive? If you're no longer serving the institution, why keep carrying its authority worldwide? Why protect the image without accepting the responsibility? The more this question gets repeated, the less imaginary it sounds. But that's where everything becomes dangerously complicated. Removing titles doesn't erase influence. It fuels conflict. It turns distance into open confrontation. In a situation already packed with tension, that move wouldn't end this story, it would completely detonate it. Then another subtle but powerful shift quietly emerges. Maybe this was never equally about both of them. Whispers begin separating Prince Harry from Meghan Markle, hinting at different motives, different paths, and completely different futures. Suddenly a fresh narrative starts taking shape, one where Prince Harry begins looking back, nostalgia quietly returns, and the anger driving everything slowly fades into regret, longing, or simply reality finally catching up. If that shift is genuine, the consequences become enormous. Different directions create instability. They create unpredictability. Most importantly, they give the institution a chance to respond to each of them separately instead of treating them as one united front. Then comes one of the most haunting pieces of this entire mystery. A photograph. A moment that may exist but remains hidden. A private meeting with the late Queen. An image the public has supposedly never seen. That missing photograph somehow speaks louder than any confirmed detail. In a world where everything gets documented, shared, and strategically used, why would something so important stay buried? Who controls it? Who gains from keeping it hidden? What truth could it reveal that nobody has openly discussed? Sometimes what's hidden says far more than what's revealed. As every piece slowly falls into place, one reality becomes impossible to ignore. This isn't a story heading toward resolution. It's becoming something even more complicated. The monarchy has changed, the people have changed, the stakes have changed, and the version of returning everyone imagines may not even exist anymore. That leaves everything trapped in uncertainty, with quiet decisions unfolding behind palace doors while the world keeps desperately trying to connect dots it was never supposed to.